should hold the class later if you are satisfied with it being taught. But I want to drive this to more of a discussion. So, how did I end up being a web application security engineer? So, anybody, do you have any developers in here? Developers? One? Couple? Okay. So if I say hello world, you probably get what I'm saying, right? The first ever code that you actually built to actually make something work, right? Well, one of the predicaments I've encountered as a security-centric professional is the fact that I have to sell security to developers. So what happens is, I'm saying, okay, we need to build this application. It's already close to production. However, we need to make it work, right? And then what happens is, you try to not consider security because we need to make this application fit the mission and yada, 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 right? Now, these are hypotheticals. So my unique situation to where I'm active duty, but also I work as a DevSecOps engineer, and this is where I can shower the knowledge and talk about web application security in its finest. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to identify vulnerabilities. We're going to try to redesign the code base, because when you talk about patch management, sometimes it can be magic, right? You have version control, you have that patch installed in your system, and voila, it's already patched, because according to whatever patch cycle you're going through, your application is already secure. Okay. And that's assumed, right? Without understanding the technical depth to why that application was patched in the first place. So when you come into the redesigning code of whatever that application may be, this will give you a depth of understanding what that is. And then lastly is open source libraries. Now keep in mind, so a lot of talks will be, especially in the commercial sector, is about supply chain. You'll hear this over and over again, right? Shift left. All these fancy words that we want to talk about that commercializes and we be influenced as military members, right? But we don't want to take these technological terminologies and take it face value, right? Do we want to at some point contradict, be cognizant to why we're trying to implement these best practices? And I'm hoping to try to achieve that, right? Next time. Perfect. Okay, I want to start off. This is to give me somewhat my introduction, but I'll point to y'all, tell me what it is. Okay? So, what is this logo right here?
Python. Google. Git. Docker. Kubernetes.
Fantastic. So I know my audience. Y'all are smart. I don't need to teach anymore. So this is my introduction. This is my tech stack, right? So all these wondrous technologies, you put them together, just makes one perfect harmony. However, it's another layer of abstraction. It's another layer of understanding, and it's another layer of cognitive load to whoever your audience may be. Could be to your developers, could be your DevSecOps team, right? So keep in mind, these tech stacks takes time to understand, and it takes time to actually implement it effectively. So this is my introduction right here. So you know where I'm coming from. Next slide. Okay, so the gist. So here's what we're going to talk about. Right now, we're going to run PyDote, and we're going to take a look at command injection. Next, I will try to use CodeQL to map out the command injection within that code base. And then next, we're going to look at some code that we're going to implement in that application so that it mitigates this all together. And then lastly, we're going to run the container and see if we could run some updates to that container. So anybody love containers besides me? Y'all? Perfect? Fantastic? Chief? Fantastic. Love it, right? You gotta love containers. So, for those who want to stay longer, but I'm not guaranteeing, right? I do have an instance of Google Kubernetes engine that I can actually deploy this on the cluster. If we have time, we might be able to do it, but not a guarantee. Next slide. Okay. So, a couple of things. To make sure that we level the stage, right? For those who are here, we'll talk about what PyDote is, what CodeQL is, what Docker Scout is, right? This is a new implementation of Docker, especially if you're trying to pull in an image, and it gives you by default, it says, hey, this is Docker Scout. Why won't you use me, right? And then we're going to do Docker containers command injection. I'm hoping to touch these terminologies so it's not too abstracted to you all. Next slide. Okay, so what is PyGo? PyGo is basically a training tool. You run a local instance to it, and then you can perform application security training at its finest. It goes you step by step from command injection, SQL, XML external entities where you have XML, and then on the top of your header you actually try to communicate to an external entity and such, right? So the list goes on and on and on right over here. Now, this PyGo application is Django. It's a Django framework. Anyone can guess what a Django framework is? What's its code base is? Python, right? It's Python. Now, command injection, this is the interesting part. So let's say you go to a normal web application, and the intent is for you to go shopping, right? You love your clothes, you want to be all stylistic like me, something of that nature, right? Well, that's wrong and your fault, that's number one. But number two is the application intent for you to run OS level commands? No, it's not. Right? So if I have a web application that I can run Windows commands, that should not work. That should not happen. Right? In most cases. Of course, incumbent if you're, for example, for EDRs, for instance, so endpoint detection and response, there's an interface that allows you to interface with hosts to run OS level commands. So that's an exception. But in most web applications, you're not supposed to be running these types of commands, right? So that's your command injection. So if I'm running ls, what kernel am I hitting? Linux, right? If I hit ns lookup, what? And Linux. That's a trick question. Try it when you get home and call me if it's wrong. So you can also run ns lookup on Linux. And then, of course, lastly, which is Django, it's a high-level Python web framework. And this is intentionally, like I said, all you have to do is run it. Okay? So let's go ahead. And it's, next slide. Showtime. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how this web application works lively. Now, if I fumble, I do apologize. This is like my first time to actually partner with Anastasia here. He's a software engineer. And we'll see what happens. All right, let's go ahead and go to the terminal. To the actual, not terminal, the web application. Sorry. Okay, so this is PyGo running as a container. As a container. As you can see on the top left corner, it says localhost 9000. Right? So this is a local instance of my web application. And on top of that, also, you have an interface that says name server lookup. So can anybody tell me what does this page function as? Just a guess. Front end to the command to where I'm looking for what? Domains, right? So equivalent to domains. If I put a domain there, functionally it should return something, right? Anybody give me a domain? Whatever. I'm sorry? What? fca.org. Let's try it. Let's run that. See if it works. Okay, perfect. So, as you can see, the function of the application is going to return to you the IP of fca.org. That's your answer section if you do a DNS request, right? So now, here's where the vulnerability comes in. We're going to attach the normal command that you enter in this application, and we're going to put a Windows command. Anybody suggest? What should I put in here? Semicolon. Semicolon, yep. And then what? Whatever, sir. LS. What? LS and what? Oh, yeah. So, okay. So, I think we can do that as well. Let's do that real quick. If you don't mind, type the ls over there, and then space, / etc, /PASSWD. Am I right? Okay. All right, that's right. So,
Cat's orange.
so what should we do to see the actual contents?
Cat.
Cat. Okay, let's do that. Do that. This is getting fun. All right. Let's replace the ls Anastasia to cat. She's a fantastic. Voila! We've got roots. We've got all these users. Damon, can you scroll down? Thank you. So is this the intention of the application?
No.
Exactly. It's not supposed to run, okay, yes sir, Colonel, there could be an argument, but it depends. For this purpose, okay, for the purpose of this use case, we're not, it says name server lookup, it's not supposed to run any other commands. But I see where your nod is coming from. We can talk.
It worked.
Yeah, but it worked, yeah. So it worked for the wrong purpose. That's the point. The command injection vulnerability exists because you are able to run OS level commands on an interface where you're not supposed to be running it in the first place. Are we understanding so far? Hopefully I get more nods. Hopefully. Perfect. Okay, so let's go back to our slides.
Sorry, would this be more like a web server level vulnerability, or is it a code level vulnerability?
So the question is, would it be a web server vulnerability or a code level vulnerability? I will answer that question later, sir.
Sure.
And I'll show you where it lies. Okay? Hold that thought up. Okay. Let's go back to the slide. Okay, next. Okay, so the local instance of the application is running as a container, right? A container. It's self-contained within your application. Now, what I want to do is to understand the containers on both of these pages. On the left-hand side, we see a container that's built upon an image. So I want you to think about an image as like a template. If I want my image to be Ubuntu as its Linux distro, if I want it to run specific commands, and if I want it to do all its updates on the background, those instructions are called your image. It's a template. Now, when an image has 4 layers, it's considering all the other lines of sets of instructions that will execute in that image. So it could be, I'm taking an image from this repository, I'm running these commands, maybe 2, 3 commands, and I'm executing my web server so that my application will run on that web server. So that's your image. Now, once it runs, it becomes a container. So that's your left-hand side. Now, to understand and get a better understanding what a container is the contrast between containers and VMs. So if you see on the left-hand side, your containers has a container engine as its abstraction for you to run containers on your host. On the other hand, with VMs, you have hypervisor and then you have guest hosts that will host each and every application. So there's a difference. So the difference of it all is like the layers of abstraction that it takes for something to run. That's number 1. Number 2 is that you can run multiple applications using this one engine and one host. As you could look closely, right, you have one host OS on your container, and you got one host OS on your VM. However, when you go up further to the stack, you'll see that your guest OS has to be instantiated on top of your hypervisor to be able to run applications. But on contrasting, all you need is a container engine and you'll be able to run your applications. So that's kind of like, hopefully, for those who, anybody experienced with VMs? VMs? Nice, nice. So I'm hoping to achieve that in a way. If I didn't, let's talk later. All right, next slide. Okay, so this is where I answer this question. Is it a web application vulnerability or is it code-based web vulnerability? It is a code-based vulnerability because of this. If you read through the code base, what CodeQL does, it's actually a GitHub application to where it will run on your code base and will make it somewhat like a database. Think about it. Every piece of code in your application, and you're running CodeQL, it will form a database for you to search for functions, variables, any parts of your code, classes, whatever the case may be. That's the purpose of CodeQL. It treats your code as data. It's like me grabbing a Python application looking for some function I named after, right? But this is more concise because I can tell my CodeQL application that I'm looking for a function, and it'll give me a list of functions. So to answer your question, sir, first one is code-based because of this. Because the way it works right now is in line 349 to 351, you see if the OS is when, or what, this is the condition where you know those two radio buttons. If you guys remember, we'll go to the web application a little bit. But it takes in the NS lookup and dig command. That's what it's executing in the background. Understanding so far? And then when it takes that command, it goes straight into the Python's module for you to run OS-specific commands. The intention of the application is only to take in NSLOOKUP and dig. However, when you put those two ampersands or semicolons, as a matter of fact, that makes it run as an OS level command. And to answer your question again, sir, it's also a web application vulnerability because it's hosted on a web application. So by practice, so if you want to validate this, sir, for those who want to be educated more with web application security, go to OWASP, which is, I forgot what, it's an acronym, but it's best practices for web application security. So this is one of them, which is code injection. And CodeQL made us, now keep in mind, this vulnerability is not because we patched package version this to be able to say this is vulnerable. This is designed by the developer. So the vulnerability that you've actually discovered is incumbent of how we put the code together. So that's another thing you have to worry about, right? Even though each and every patch and each and every module within that application is inherently secure, but the use case that you actually implemented it in is basically saying you made it vulnerable, right? Because am I supposed to be using these modules within this application? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. It depends on your use case. I will leave that flexibility up to you. But remember, if you're a developer, if you put code together, it's incumbent to you, in some cases, that it could be vulnerable based upon just your coding practices alone. All right. Next slide. Showtime. All right. All right, here's what we're going to do next. Let's see if we can. Okay. Let's go to the terminal message. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this terminal here shows us that we are actually running the server, and as you can see now, it outputted all the commands that we actually sent to that web application. So the cat etc password, and now we sent a post to that endpoint. Now let's see if we can open another tab. So I'm going to show you. So right now, our web server is running. So what we're going to do, we're going to uncover of how the code base is going to look like. It'll be tricky, guys. Hang on tight. All right, so we're going to look at the current container that's running. So let's run the command docker space and then ps. Enter. Fantastic. I have a local Kubernetes cluster in there. So disregard the last three. But Pygo, that's what we're running. Ran 43 minutes ago. So this is the application we're running, okay? And what we're going to do now is we're going to end that container, and we're going to look at its code base. Make that happen. Okay, docker, space, exec, exec, space, tac, it. Let me see if I can remember this stuff right, okay? Bear with me. All right, space, and let's take the container ID, or you can type in pygo / pygo if that's easier for you, Anastasia. And then next, where we're going to do space, and then we're going to enter a shell. Let's do bash. I think sh is also acceptable. I use bash as a reason why. Sorry. Enter. No such thing. Okay, I don't know if we can use that. Let's use a container ID because it's the image. That's the thing. So we need to use. Let's try to copy this over here.
Oh, this thing right here.
It's fantastic. She's a first Mac user, so I put her in the spotlight. She's a Linux person, so I'm like, okay, let's give this a shot. Forward.
Oh.
Yeah, I have
that's fun.
my bachelor issue. Okay. Right, enter. Fantastic. All right, we have a prompt, right? So by default, you enter. Now, imagine you are in a terminal of a web application, and at this point, what we're going to do, we're going to look at that vulnerable code as he was talking about. So let's go ahead, type in ls. See what files we have. Okay, so we have a couple of files here. Very interesting. We're going to go, let's cd into pygoat. Enter. All right. Ls again. So what we're doing now, we're going into the file structure, right? This is all the code base that's enabling the web application to run. Next, we're going to go to introduction, cd introduction. Enter. All right. So ls. And then we're going to do, okay, I think I have VI in here. Let's try VI views. I think we have to download this thing. Remove the EWS, VI, space, VI views. VI and then tab. Try that. Tab. Nice, okay. All right, I did that on purpose. So remember, if you have an image that you're taking in and you run it as a container, you're not always going to have all the packages, and it's designed by default. Because it will not give you the dependency that you need right off the bat, because it needs to be as lean as possible. Right? So let's install, let's do it. Let's try to get VI. So does anybody know what VI is? Yep, I'm a fan, sorry. So, all right, let's do this. All right, let's, okay, correct me guys if I'm wrong. Okay, so let's look at the distribution. Anybody, how would I know what the distribution of this is? The next, come on. Uname. Let's do a uname tag. Space.
Tag.
Yeah. Enter. So this is, so for, I always get confused with like images, like for like Linux, they like Linux kit, whatever. But I have to look at the Docker file to see what the base image is. I think the base image for this is actually Python specific. But here's what we're going to do next. We're going to download the VI so that we could view it and make some changes on that code base. Okay? So next is go ahead and do apt-get, apt-get, and then install. This might be wrong. There's VI. Okay, so what we need to do to upgrade and update. So let's do apt-get upgrade I think first. Oh, you did, and then yep. Smarter than me. Fantastic.
First, I think we're supposed to do update first.
Yeah, I don't. Does anybody know? I always keep on forgetting. Update first? Update first. See? I love my audience. Update first and then I'm always dyslexic with that command. Alright, so now we're trying to download the packages to make sure that we can actually use a package that doesn't exist within the image. Okay. Yes? Go ahead and why? Please bear with us as the internet try to cooperate with this live demo. I geek out with these lines of stuff that I see. I know if anybody else sees this, but yeah, it's fine art. I'll tell you that. Joys of people in life, right? As we watch, any questions so far, by the way? Any questions? Any experts out there? Can I phone a friend? Alright. We can talk later if you're an expert, just let me know. I'm used to like public humiliation. I mean, meaning you call me out if I'm wrong. Alright, so we're almost there, guys. So for the meantime, what we're going to do right now, we're downloading the VI, and we're going to look at the code base, right, to what is vulnerable. And in the world of Django, the design pattern for this application is MVC, or your model view controller, right? So if you're a developer, for those who raise their hands, you know there are different design patterns when you're actually developing applications, depending on where you place your folders, where you place your applications, and yada, yada, yada. And now we have it open. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and do VI views. Nice. Enter. Oh no, we haven't even installed it yet. So apt-get install. That's what we need to do. Forgot about that. Try Vim. Yeah, Vim. See, I made that same mistake too. Oh, it's Vim. See, Colonel, you wanna join me? So now we've added more packages to our image or our container because it's running right now. So remember, sir?
You turn your container to a VM.
Yeah, exactly. So to Chief's point, I'm turning the container into a VM because it defeats the container's purpose at this point because it has to be lean. But I'm adding more packages to it, which increases the attack surface. Remember, does anybody know what attack surface is? Am I the only one? Sir, what you got?
It's the surface of, I guess the available vulnerabilities out there that an attacker can use to gain access.
Yeah, exactly. So it allows you to gain access to a system. However, so let's think it this way. The more applications that you have, the more your attack surface can increase. So it's proportional. So if I have 5 dependencies and I made it 8, 10, 20, the more it has avenues of opportunities to exploit that system because it has more packages inherently. Shoot. Okay. We're gonna. So we'll try to. Okay. We'll not do that for now. Now here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna cat, but I'm going to grep to. Yeah, we'll cat it real quick. So let's do cat tab n space and then views.py. With S, sorry. And then stop there, go to the very end of it. We're gonna do a pipe. We're gonna more this because it's gonna scroll all down all together. More, M-O-R-E. Fantastic. All right. So what we're going to do, let's go enter. Okay. So this is our code base, right? This is what it'll look like. And let's go down to 342. So yeah, you have to go down again. I think it's like, I don't know if you can do
Does it
N.
loop?
Can you do N?
B.
B?
B.
B.
Back.
Back. Okay, can you do back?
No.
In core cat, sorry, yeah. That's fine. Okay, let's go Q, and then execute the command again. And then let's just go 342. Stop it. So this is where the code base that we were looking for, right? So it takes in a request, it has an endpoint, and it tells me that whatever I'm taking in as an input in that web application, it will pass into this code base, and then from line 342 down to line 360 will enable you to do command injection. So that's kind of like the gist of the vulnerability in itself. All right, let's quit that real quick, and then let's go to the next slide. Let's see if we can. I'll try to figure out that later. See if it's going. Okay. All right. So hypothetically, if I had VI or VM, whatever the case may be, I actually can show that in my other VS Code instance, but I'll just show you how this looks like from before and after. So before, you have like your request from 344, you take in the domain key. So that domain, that word domain in 345 is the words that you put in that search bar. Remember that search bar would be like, what is that, askia.org, and then semicolon whatever? That's your domain, the get domain. And as your domain is being passed, 346, if you put like an HTTPS colon / www dot whatever, it will relate all together, right? Cleans it up. And then you go down further, and then now the most important part is 356. So as I mentioned before, your subprocess allows you to interface with the OS level commands. And if it takes it face value, it will just run the command after the semicolon or after the ampersand command, and it will take that as a context, as a Linux command for the system, because it's where it's hosted, right? So we would know for a fact command injection can allow you to actually survey your target. So if I'm a hacker, I have command injection vulnerability in my in their web application. If I run these commands, I'll probably have a good chance to be able to hack into that system bypassing it. Good chance. All right. But after this is where we put code. Now keep in mind, I want you to see here that says OWASP Validation Regis Repository. So this is the Web Application Security Best Practice Organization, and they've recommended to put this regex. It's law. I hate regex. I have to admit. This is like foreign language to me. But in a nutshell, what it's trying to do is trying to take that regular expression and only look for specific domains. So if we put afcia.org semicolon /PASWD, would it work? If my regex is only looking for domains, but I'm adding more stuff on top of that domain, would it work? It won't match it, exactly. So that's the premise of the regex. It only looks for specific characters that will match a domain, even though it's so googly goo to me, right? So that took me a while to actually understand that. Now here's the premise of the code base that I put. If the domain is set and it matches the pattern, it will match it. So for those developers, this is not necessarily like ternary operator, but this is some of the practices that you could put your if statement all in one line. So if you're a coder, most cases you have if this, if that, then this, or if this, if that, then else. But in this case, I shortened this up to where domain, if it matches, it will set that domain to that variable. So it eliminates that command injection altogether. But if it doesn't match, it will just become an empty string, which is the else over here. So it will not set that domain at all. So once it hits the application, when you put those commands right in front of that domain, it will just run as normal, but not disclosing anything that at the OS level, if that makes sense. Hopefully I didn't confuse anybody any further. All right, perfect. All right, anything else? Okay, showtime. So what we're going to try to do, let's try to do this real quick. Go back to our terminal, Anesthesia. Okay, so what was our error? Okay, let's try to run that install one more time. I just want to see the error real quick. If we can't fix it, I do apologize, but we'll give it a shot. I just want to see the error. I think there was additional packages I needed to install. The following direction will be installed. So those ones over there. This is over here. Oh, looks like it worked. Well, looks like it worked. Give it a shot. VI. And then views. Imagine your computers. See how much we worked. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. Alright, in line. Oh, you know what? Okay. So for your VI users, Colonel, am I put you on the spot? But I'll start with this one. Let's set the line numbers. So basically when you do VI right off the bat, it doesn't have line numbers. I like to use that as reference. So what I would do is I would type in colon, which changes the mode of VI, and then put set space number.
Yep.
No, number like the word number.
Word number,
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry.
Enter.
Enter. Oh, I love VI. Now it has line numbers. Okay. So for better instruction, in line number 28, we're going to put in import RE, so which is the dependency for regex for Python. Import RE. And then now press escape. Okay, now it changes the mode, because for VI, if you change between modes, okay, keep in mind, I know this kind of sounds like old technology, but keep in mind, if y'all are going to go like Kubernetes or anything that's have to do with a lot of technologies that you need to make changes on the fly, VI is going to be your friend. I'm telling you. Trust me on that, because I've done it before. So let's go to, let's do colon 342. Perfect. Okay, that works. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put in the code base to show if it actually works. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is a little tricky, and I'll teach you how to do this. Let's go to line 346. So scroll down. What you're going to do next is Shift A. Shift A goes to insert mode, and now it puts you into insert mode at the same time, goes to the end of the line. Enter. And I need you to help me copy paste this. So what we're going to do is pattern equals, and then it was re dot compile, and then we're going to close it. Yep. And then what we're going to do next is we need to go to that regex. I think it's in my VS Code somewhere. Go to the right. Let's just open another instance and maybe we'll be able to. Yeah, go back to your terminal and to the web application. Look for, type it over here so I can show you guys. Type in OS, you know the OS validation repository. Yeah. I'm going to show that to the people. All right. So this is what I'm talking about, right? So OS, if you get into web applications specifically, this is a good site to go to, right? And at the very middle, it will show you regex specific values so that you can sanitize anything that you want to have input in your web application. Let's go down. I'll do a control command F and look for domain. Should you do the last time? Domain. Fantastic. All right. So this is the one we're going to copy. So from that caret down to the dollar sign. I got me blinded a little bit. All right. Cool beans.
Alright, and then back to the journal.
Yeah, and then go back to the terminal, and then now we're going to paste that in there. But you have to enclose it first in a string. So do like two colons, and then go back inside and then paste it in there. Command V works in here too.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so we're good so far. So first we compile the actual regex, and then escape. Command capital A, and then enter. And then now what we're going to do next, we're going to do the match. So domain equals domain, and then if, and then space, and then pattern dot match, and then enclose it into parentheses. And we're going to put inside that parentheses, we're going to put domain in there. And then space, else, and then empty string. All right, enter. Oh, not enter, but like escape. And then you should be good. We're going to do colon WQ. So WQ is you write over it and then you actually save it. Enter. So now, keep in mind, let's go to your tablet on the left-hand side. Like the other, no. Same terminal, but like the other tab, which is right here.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so what happens is so when we make changes, I think it actually took it because it's watching for file changes with state reloader. So if you're running this web server, by default, if you make changes dynamically, it will actually take it. So let's go ahead and go to that web application and try the exact same command, see if it works. So we're going to go do command injection to the next tab on the left-hand side. And we're going to do what they said, like, is AFCIA, there we go. See if it works. All right, pray. Scroll down. Okay. Did anybody see password there? Anybody? It's only the domain that returned. Okay, can you scroll back up again, Anastasia, and paste that same command over there so it gives visual to the people? Enter. So scroll down. So this is the command we entered, right? But it was supposed to output your etc password file, and it didn't. Well, it should be in cat. But yeah, anyway, it should be in cat, whatever, and then it should be output, it didn't. Okay? So,
I did cat.
yep, and then let's try the cat this time. Alright, so it didn't output the actual etc PSW file. So we changed the code base. It was intentionally vulnerable, but we changed a little bit, tweaked it here and there to make it fit to our use case. which we want to make it a little secure. I'm not guaranteeing that, but nothing is 100% secure. If somebody tells you that, talk to me. Other than that, I'm good. Any questions? Sir?
So the input validation is coming from that string that you got, or is it the compute library that was doing the input validation?
Oh, so good question. So where does the input validation come from, in other words, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this here, appsia.org, cat etc password is your input. Okay, keep in mind, this is your input. Now let's go back to the code base, Ms. Isha. Turn around. You know what, other tab to your right, perfect. Let's do let's do VI, same command, yep, perfect. And then go to, so we're in the same line. So remember, that command went to here, right? And what it did is that when it came to here, it only took the domain attribute. The domain attribute is the actual line that we put in there. After that, it passed over here if it had anything that the protocol, www, it didn't have it, so it's still the same thing, right? And then the pattern here, this preps the application to make the comparison from the regex to the object that's coming in, right? To make it recognizable within the code base. Because regex taken by default is to be taken by string, right? The context of the application when it passes in this specifically is only be a string. Unless you compile it, then it becomes recognizable as a regex expression. So remember, if you're going to be a developer, if you understand code bases, context is very important. Even A can be one, A can be a different one, depending on where you use it. The letter A can be used in different ways. As you can see, letter A was even used in VI, right? To actually change modes and actually put it edit mode. Now, and then the domain, if it matches the regex here, then it sets it to the domain. Otherwise, it would just be an empty string. Sir?
I just saw that sometimes if you do multi-line string, it doesn't catch a second line.
So you say it doesn't catch if it's a multi-line
If
string?
you go back to the if I go
Okay.
and then do new line character right before the semicolon.
Okay. Let's see this.
And was it backslash in or forward slash in?
Like that?
Is that new line or is it the other way around?
I think it's the it's the other way around. It's the other way around.
The way around.
So yeah, go to that section the other way around. Yep.
Does that do anything?
Let's see. Why won't you try it then?
Should I leave the cat stuff there?
Yeah, leave the cat stuff in there.
No.
No, so to your point, multi-line, right? Is that your question?
Sometimes it regex won't catch it if it's not specifically set for multi-line.
Oh yeah, exactly. So it depends on if multi-line can be interpreted by Python differently from JavaScript, and it depends on the code base. Because some of them is like caret and some of it is /n. Well, we could talk about that after, but I like your point. But yeah, so to answer your question, yes. So it comes from here and it passes into the code base. It compares the regex that we compiled, and if it matches, it will run this as normal. But if it doesn't, it will just pass on an empty string. So that's what it's doing here. It's not apparent because it's still resolving, but this is actually trying to resolve an empty string. And to prove that, can we put an empty string on top of here?
Yep.
Just a proof point, just an empty string. See if it still works. You see it still works. So if we pass it, regardless, it's going to work like that. Unless you pass something else to it. So, yeah. Any other questions? So thank you so much. That's my talk. If you want to talk about Kubernetes, let's geek out. If you want to know more of what I do introductions based on your aspirations of what you want to be in the next 3, 4, 5 years. I see a couple youngsters here, right? But also, if you want to know more what I do, what I've done, and how I'll be able to break stuff at an enormous magnitude, but I learned from it, I got stories for you guys. All right? Thank you very much. Oh.
Sorry about you. So my role is a cybersecurity manager. So usually when the application comes to my shop, it's already, okay, ready to go. is this secure? Can we put it onto your network? So is there a way to say some kind of standard, is it like a PICO or what? Can say, oh, have you, oh, what's it?
So OS.
QL?
Oh, CoQL? Yes.
Like, is there any like a standard I can say, have you done this check? Have you checked with this?
Okay, so
Something like that, so I know it's some sort of like, okay, you should be not as vulnerable as, you know, there's some sort of standard that they went through.
okay, so there's a standard. Yes, there is a standard. Let's go to OS real quick. Let's open that OS coding standards. I think that's what the title is.
Coding standards.
I can always be wrong here, guys. But it's, so there's a way for you to validate code bases. OS coding standards, yeah, something like that. So this is a quick reference going into here. So you can actually utilize OS secure coding practices. Let's go to the developer guide right there. I think it's archived for some reason. Scroll down. It's ASVs. I forgot ASVS. Or type in OS ASVS real quick. Sorry to keep you any longer, but I really want to answer this question. OS ASVS. Application Security Verification Center. So this is a way for you to look at your code base from a coding perspective. So are you implementing the right functions? Are you actually doing the right way of coding? Do you sanitize your inputs? Are you designing your code base to the way it's secure? Are you using APIs that are actually in the right place in the right time, or does it have the right authorizations and such? So this is a good starting point. However, I caveat you, do not rely on security if a human has touched it. Meaning, if you have a web application, you still have to go through the gamut of security practices from a technological side. I would do, if I have a pipeline, I would implement security gates in between. So this comes from Trivi. So there's Trivi is actually here. I was surprised. Aqua Security. I actually use their tool set. So we use Trivi to scan vulnerability packages, configurations for Terraform, and Helm charts. And then, so that's your first one. And then you go to the next. You can do CodeQL to open the code base and see, okay, from a coding perspective, what designs of code that we actually are vulnerable with. And at the very end, if you release your application, you could do pen testing or some scanning. So that's kind of like at a minimum. So kind of like a 3-stage cert to start with, but of course everybody's unique to their use cases. So keep in mind, my recommendation, take it with a grain of salt, but this is what my experience entails in terms of trying to implement security at its best. But you're never going to get perfect security. You have to be a people person, trust me. And my social skills just diminishes after a day of work. Any other questions? All right. Good job. That's fantastic. Oh yeah.
Just have 4 more minutes before
Yeah.
the scanner works, so other questions?
I have one more question, if no one asks a question. Like say someone say, hey, let's go to the cloud here. We're gonna have an application in the Amazon Web Services, Then suddenly hey, there's something that normally is on-prem, and suddenly now that your critical mission critical application now is in the cloud. Then how do I know I can trust that application in the cloud?
So you know my magic word is always to that. So how would you know if you could trust an application? My magic word for all of this is traceability. And I tell you why. If you understand like the surrounding artifacts of your application, if you understand the logging behind your application, so if you're like cloud native in GCP, because I'm a GCP guy, Log Explorer, which is, it's a enormous amount of logs in itself, right? Or You understand, okay, from this pipeline to the other, this is how it's going to get to production. Traceability will allow you to characterize everything outside the premise of the application. And it increases your trust because you have touch points to those technologies. Right? So if I have trivia on my side, I have logging on my side, I have this dashboard on my side, all these nuances of niches and all of that grand stuff. And I'm telling you, that will be your best friend. And if you cannot patch an application, and if you cannot change its code base, at least understand how you'll be able to see it. Visibility and response. Keep in mind, people, I'm telling you, I'll preach this right now. Visibility ain't enough. We're security people to respond, okay? We're here to respond to, we need action on things. We're not here just to see, okay? So, traceability, which includes visibility and all that good stuff, and how you will respond if shit hits the fan. Sorry about that. No question? Sir.
One of the topic titles was open source software, right? And so I think in the DoD, there's this attitude like open source software is the enemy. But at the same time, can you maybe talk a little bit about how Docker and Kubernetes can help us deliver that software bill of material via open source software, just based on that traceability we talked about?
So, good point. Corinne has a good question. So how would we be able to enable open source technology through Docker and to give us a better comfort level to adapt open source technology? Am I correct? So in this case, for example, like I mentioned, well, you know what I forgot? Docker Scout, for crying out loud. So, if you guys can stay or not, but I'm going to show you real quick. Can we go to terminal real quick?
Yep.
You don't mind? Okay, so let's exit VI. Let's do :WQ again. And then let's exit our container dash instance. Exit, just type in exit.
Just type in
Yep.
exit.
Enter. So here's what we're going to do. So let's type in Docker space scout space CVE.
CVE.
Yep, and then space local, and then colon. I think it's // pygoat / pygoat. I'm guessing, guys, without my help. Oh, okay, so CD blah 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 scout blah blah. Oh, we need an S in the CD. So go up. You forgot the S. So go back and type in the S in there. So this is kind of like shift left, right? So as you download the image that you're going to apply your application, you actually have lists of vulnerabilities, and that's 418 and 59 packages. This is where, once again, we talk about attack surface. As we increase the number of packages, we increase the number of vulnerabilities, and this is it. So that's a technological solution, right? But how will we be able to have more confidence we can realize open source technology? When you download these open source libraries, there are ways to scan it. One is this. Another, you can utilize trivia. So you come up with a mechanism to where you want to mitigate your supply chain attack vectors by downloading and come up with a solution to where can I use storage composition analysis to ensure that the packages within that open source are not vulnerable or not that vulnerable? Or do I have technologies to where I can scan it, download the repo and say, hey, this package that I have doesn't have the packages that are currently existing within the CVE list. Or better yet, what you can do is like make sure this is all automated. So the automation is going to be your friend. So if you're a security person, pride in automation. I guarantee you your success will increase tenfold. In the 6 month span, I made like 5 projects. 5 projects on cloud with only 6 months experience in cloud. So I'm telling you, if you can automate stuff as much as you can, it will be your bread and butter within your career. But yeah, did I answer your question?
It did. I appreciate the explanation of Dr. Scott. That was helpful. I think the other thing that this pulls out was, I mean, really at the end of the day, you had a simple web app that was running, right? But in order to do that, you've got, 142, 144, I mean, there's a lot of things that are installed on the backside, and Docker can help you limit those, right? To reduce the amount of complexity, which will help reduce the attack surface too.
Okay, good point. And here's another thing too. By the way, before you guys go, this is a website that you need to look at. first.org/EPSS. Can we pull that real quick? Anesthesia? I want to show you something real quick, sir. So you're talking about enormous numbers, right? Let's open a web application now. And let's go first.org.
First.
Yep, .org / let's go enter. We'll come up with that website. Okay, so this is improving security together. What happens is, if you go to the initiatives, and it's click on, is it standard? Signs of publications, I think. Oh no, actually initiatives, go to fellowship, special interest groups on the top there. Scroll down. Exploit Prediction Scoring System, EPSS. Okay, EPSS model. So for those math nerds out there, this is a great way. If you have tons and tons of vulnerabilities, you can prioritize them on a mathematical scale. And not only a mathematical scale, but also a culmination of expertise that could come together and decided this is how we're going to prioritize our vulnerabilities. So as you can see here, this is all published, right? But this is only exploitation. It's like small percentage, right? We're not just ticket pushers. We have to understand where we're going to prioritize the enormous amount of vulnerabilities. I would highly recommend starting with that. Sir.
So if I was to basically implement a repository of secured images, because that doesn't really exist in the Army or military from what I'm aware of right now, how would I implement that? Is there a way to implement offline repositories that
So
are secured?
So Sergeant Tucker has a good question. So if you have in commercial practice, his question was, do we have a way to actually implement a repository that's dedicated to what we're only going to use within the confines of our application? Am I correct? In a secure manner.
Yes, or your organization offline. 'Cause
Offline.
You can't have traditional.
Okay, so if you're not going to be API dependent, at least come up with a cycle to where you can have private repositories based on the application you're running. So let's say, I think JFrog, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if it's offline because a lot of these commercials are more online, but I would, right now, I would say, try the process manually. And the reason why is that you can develop a use case unique to your own situation to where you're not guessing a technology, but you're guessing rather a process. This is the vindication I have a lot of these people because you start with the technology, but it's not really your use case, right? We don't talk technology because we're smart. We talk technology because it's mainstream and it's always been talked about. But if you start with a process, which I'm recommending you do it manually, right? Educate yourself with all your packages, download it, scan all of it, come up with a process. It's going to be a heartache, right? And then maybe you might come up with a technological solution that's commercially available. Because you go through the heart pain. If you don't go through the heart pain, you're just guessing it because you just want to get this shit done. It's just too fast for you to do.
So does the Army not have a set of approved containers?
I'm not 100% sure, sir, because I've been Chief might be able to answer that question.
Certain PORs, that, like for example, we work with Elastic, they have program record to provide Elastic, they're going to use.
So can we reciprocate? So the Air Force has Iron Bank, which is a set of scanned and STIG and locked containers. It would seem like this is something where across.
You would hope, right?
Yeah, I mean this is what they're pushing from the DoD and up above is how do we ensure across the different
Get rid of the
services
information
this kind of
silos.
reciprocity. I'm sorry.
You get rid of those information silos we currently have, so that we kind of,
Okay.
we could have like maybe a repository that's shared across DoD for approved baselines, maybe like a baseline
guys are welcome to. If you have any questions, we could talk one-on-one after. And then thank you so much.